This is the final episode of the Matt Walsh Show for 2024. It was a big year, a strange year, and ultimately a great year for the entire country, one that saw the fall of the Biden regime, the end of the Obama dynasty, and Trump, like a phoenix, rising from the ashes to reclaim the White House. It was also a big year and a great year for me and the rest of the team here at the DailyWire. After many months of work, we finally released our follow-up to What is a Woman, which went on to become the top film in its genre this decade and had a bigger debut on the Daily Wire platform than even What is a Woman had. So there's been a lot to celebrate. But most importantly, it was a year for canceling. We canceled hundreds of people and things and even animals, I think, on this show during the calendar year of 2024. And so today, for the final show of the year, we're going to take a look back at the top 4 cancellations of the year 2024. And just as a note, my team initially wanted to do a top 3, but I said, no, it should be 4, because 4 in 2024 sounds better. This is the kind of artistic insight that keeps the audience coming back for more. So let's get to the list. For number 4, we go back to the very beginning of the year, actually January 8th, 2024. With the cancellation of Madonna, who attracted my ire and prompted a 13-minute rant because she danced funny at a concert. Here it is. Well, Madonna recently embarked on her new global tour called Celebration, and indeed the tour is an opportunity to celebrate her musical career, which effectively died 25 years ago and yet has lingered on in zombified form, horrifying and confusing spectators all the while. As far as I can tell, she has not had a number 1 single since the tail end of the Clinton administration. She hasn't been even vaguely relevant on the music scene at any point this century. The last time she made headlines was when she kissed Britney Spears at the VMAs in 2003. Way back then, she had already entered into her desperate attention whore phase, grasping for relevance in whatever way she could. And 20 years later, Britney Spears is now dancing half naked on Instagram with butcher knives, and Madonna looks like a geriatric Marilyn Manson still trying to be a sex symbol, even though she's been AARP eligible for a decade and a half. And anyway, now she's on tour. Now, there's nothing wrong with a 65-year-old singer going on tour. Aretha Franklin was still performing at the age of 75 before she died. But a 65-year-old woman should perform like a 65-year-old woman. Classy, refined, mature, dignified, dazzling with a beautiful vocal performance rather than relying on sex appeal. The problem, though, is that Madonna can't sing, and she can't write good music, and she wouldn't know classiness and refinement if it fell out of the sky and landed on her head, which means that the people who buy tickets for the Celebration tour, and for the life of me, I can't understand why anyone would, are in for an incredibly cringy display. And however cringy you think it might be, I assure you that it's even worse than that. So case in point, here's a 12-second viral clip from Madonna's latest stop on her tour, and here's what it looks like. Now, if you're wondering what a rec time at the nursing home will look like in the year 2070, there it is. And for those who are blessed to only be listening to the audio podcast and were therefore spared the visuals, I will just tell you that Madonna appears to be wrapped in aluminum foil while she clings onto a support rail and gyrates clumsily to techno music. And, it's kind of like if you brought your elderly aunt to a rave and she got way more into it than you expected. It's an embarrassing sight to behold, but also oddly fascinating in the same grotesque way that, you might gawk at roadkill while you drive by trying to figure out, is that a raccoon or a fox? What is that? And by the way, this is a good time to tell you that, and I did check for myself, Madonna's next stop is in Boston in 3 days. And you might think, well, it's in 3 days. There's no way I can go. All the tickets are sold out. No, there are plenty of seats still available. In fact, you can buy a ticket for $60. You can buy a ticket for $60 to Madonna's tour in 3 days. People were like literally killing each other over Taylor Swift tickets or buying them for $95,000. But Madonna, you can go see for $60. Shockingly, people are not tripping over themselves to go watch grandma in Zumba class for 2 hours. But needless to say, if you find this spectacle ridiculous, then the problem isn't with the aging pop star throwing her hip out while she tries to twerk on stage. The problem is with you. You are ageist, according to the media. The Independent reports today, quote, Madonna is being defended from ageist trolls after a video showing the singer performing while holding a beam for support surfaced online. Earlier this week, a clip from the Like a Prayer singer celebration tour was shared on TikTok showing the star 65 dancing energetically while holding a pole positioned behind her. Now let's pause there for a moment. And I can tell you it's never a good sign when the best thing someone can say about your dance moves is that they were energetic. Like if you perform a dance routine and you go up to someone and you say, hey, what'd you think? And they respond, yeah, wow, it was energetic. I mean, that means you sucked, okay? Anyway, the Independent continues. Many trolls then proceeded to incorrectly conflate Madonna's decision to hold the rail for support with her age and sent her messages of vitriol online. However, it has since been revealed that during this particular segment of the show, Madonna is dancing while standing on a moving platform, meaning she is holding the pole for her safety. Oh, well, that changes everything. The 65-year-old woman needed to hold the pole while she danced for her safety. Well, that solves that, I guess. People magazine reports that other aging musicians are coming to Madonna's defense. Quote, Chuck D is coming to Madonna's defense. On Thursday, the Public Enemy frontman 63 posted to X to defend the Frozen singer 65. By the way, Frozen singer is like, I guess that's a song. That's what they mean. It's not, they don't mean that she's like literally frozen, like cryogenically frozen, although she does sort of look like she has been. Anyway, defend against trolls making ageist comments about her performance during her career-spanning celebration tour. He said, quote, at 63, I know I can bike better than I ever did, and Pilates ain't easy, but I give it to Madonna for pushing the bars, D said of the legendary pop star. Flav is taking Pilates too, and he's 64, so ageism sometimes gets like racism both ways if you let it. Wait, go up again. Ageism sometimes gets like racism both ways if you let it. I think Chuck D had a stroke when he wrote that last sentence. I don't know what that means. But you see, the point is, it is ageism to notice how ridiculous an older woman looks when she tries to pretend that she's still 22. And Madonna herself has made this point many times. A few months ago, she appeared at the Grammys, and her face, if you remember, was so weird and puffy from plastic surgery that she looked like she'd been attacked by a swarm of bees shortly before appearing on stage. And again, people noticed how weird she looked, and she responded by calling them ageist. The Guardian reported at the time, quote, the 64-year-old singer denounced the entertainment industry for its biases against women who have continued to work long into their careers. Quote, once again, I am caught in the glare of ageism and misogyny that permeates the world we live in. A world that refuses to celebrate women past the age of 45 and feels the need to punish her if she continues to be strong-willed, hardworking, and adventurous. She said that she has, quote, never apologized for any of the creative choices I have made, nor the way that I look or dress, and I'm not going to start. I've been degraded by the media since the beginning of my career, but I understand that this is all a test, and I am happy to do the trailblazing so that all the women behind me can have an easier time in the years to come. Yes, thank you for trailblazing, Madonna. You have blazed a trail that other women can follow so that they, too, can become addicted to Botox and end up looking like the creepy puppet from Saw. How brave of you. Now, as for the ageism claims, let me just say one thing. We are not an ageist society. We are the opposite. We are an age-denying society. And that's how you end up with 65-year-old pop stars and 80-year-old presidents and a Congress filled with people who took office sometime around the War of 1812. You know, it's also why plastic surgery is a booming industry, especially among Gen Z. In Gen Z, they are actually young, but in their desperation to stay young, they get lip filler and Botox and lifts and implants. And ironically, they end up looking a lot older. They end up looking like middle-aged Stepford wives. Ageism is not even close to our problem. Our problem is our refusal to age and to accept the reality of aging. Madonna she is too old to be gyrating on stage in a skin-tight aluminum leotard. And we can argue about whether anyone of any age should be behaving that way, but there's no question that for her, at her age, she looks pathetic and clumsy and ridiculous. And it's not that a 65-year-old woman can't be beautiful. No, a 65-year-old woman can be beautiful, but a beautiful 65-year-old woman is a 65-year-old woman who knows that she is 65 and embraces the fact. Beauty and truth go hand in hand. But when you are not honest with yourself and the world about who you are, you end up looking not beautiful, but weird and grotesque. Just like there are plenty of 25-year-old women who would be beautiful and were beautiful, but then they defiled themselves with unnecessary plastic surgery, and now they too look weird and grotesque. Aging is a reality of human existence. And we find this reality scary, almost unspeakable, really, because it reminds us of death. We treat it as literally unspeakable, like it's embarrassing to ask someone their age, right? We say you shouldn't ask someone, someone's age is an embarrassing fact, and we take that for granted. Well, in traditional societies, you go back through history, if you went up to someone and asked them how old they were, they wouldn't be, I'm 25. I've been celebrating my 25th birthday for 30 years now. They wouldn't do that. They'd be proud of their age. If somebody was 75, they would say, I'm 75. They'd be proud of it because it means they've been alive for 75 years. But here we treat it as actually embarrassing to have lived a long life. It's ridiculous. And the reason is that we are in a constant state of denial about death. We say things like, age is just a number, but that's only true in the same sense that height is just a number or the temperature outside is just a number. No, we come up with numbers to symbolize these realities, but they are still realities. We could stop keeping track of age altogether. We could assign it no number at all, and that wouldn't change the fact that we all get older 1 second at a time, and eventually our bodies start to break down and our minds start to break down, and then we die. That is the lot that we have been given. Happiness and harmony and beauty can be found in accepting it and acting accordingly. So the most beautiful thing that Madonna could do right now is retire and go home and put on some slippers and sit on her porch and read books to her grandchildren. Let the wrinkles form on her face. Let the hair go gray. Let herself be who she is. And she is not a 22-year-old pop star. She was that once. She will never be that again. Time to accept it. And until she does, she is, again, canceled. Are you feeling the stress about giving your family a memorable holiday? You're not alone. Prices remain higher than ever, and a lot of us are maxing out our credit cards. Now's the perfect time to take control of your finances and pay off that debt. If you're a homeowner, American Financing can help you unlock the equity in your home and start saving. Their customers save $800 a month on average. Just imagine what that could mean for your family. Plus, if you act now, you could even delay 2 mortgage payments, giving you extra cash for the season. Wouldn't it be nice to start off the new year without that debt and those monthly minimum payments? It costs nothing to find out how much you could save. The holidays will be here before you know it, so call one of their salary-based mortgage consultants today. American Financing, call now, 866-569-4711. That's 866-569-4711. Or visit americanfinancing.net/Walsh, NMLS 182334, NMLS Consumer Access. Do it now before the next economic crisis hits. NMLS 182334, NMLS ConsumerAccess.org. You know what keeps me up at night? The state of our country. But at least I'm not tossing and turning because of my mattress anymore. That's right, folks. I'm talking about Helix Sleep. Now, you might be thinking, Matt, aren't all mattresses basically the same? Wrong. That's liberal thinking right there. Helix understands that we're all different. Unlike the left's one-size-fits-all policies, they offer 20 unique mattresses, including their Luxe and Elite collections for you hardworking Americans who deserve some luxury, the Helix Plus for you big and tall fellas, and even a Helix Kids mattress. What really sold me was how they customize each mattress. My old one was just a mattress. This one, though, feels like it was made just for me. Helix has a sleep quiz that'll match you with your perfect mattress in under 2 minutes so you can get better sleep and a better start to each day. Here's another reason to love Helix. Their mattresses have so many helpful features to ensure you get a good night's rest. The layers in this thing are just incredible. There's this pressure-relieving memory foam that makes you feel like you're sleeping on a cloud. They also use this special technology that keeps me cool all night. I used to wake up sweating, just a sweaty, disgusting mess, but not anymore. Truly, just so many things to love about Helix. So if you're ready to revolutionize your sleep and wake up refreshed to fight the good fight, Helix is offering my listeners 20% off all mattress orders, plus 2 free pillows with any mattress purchase. Just go to helixsleep.com/Walsh. That's HELIXSLEEP.com/Walsh. With Helix, better sleep starts now. Now, I always like to take any opportunity that I can to remind the audience that they're all going to die, as I do at the end there. And I think approximately 35% of my cancellations end on that note or something similar, which I think is very important. Moving on to number 3, we go from an old bitter harpy to a young bitter harpy. This is my cancellation, one of, I think, several this year, of the new Snow White, Rachel Zegler. Every time we check in on Disney's upcoming Snow White remake, somehow things get even worse than they were before. This is a production that went off the rails a long time ago, which is quite an achievement if you think about it. With all the money and technology we have in 2024, somehow Disney is struggling very hard to match the quality of a film from the 1930s. At first, there were the leaked images of the actors playing the 7 dwarves, which weren't dwarves at all because that would be culturally insensitive. So instead, Disney replaced the dwarves with a diverse array of magical hobos. Then, when everyone pointed out that the dwarves are kind of important to the story, Disney delayed the production, fired all the actors playing the magical hobos, replaced them with CGI dwarves, which didn't look particularly convincing, but at least they were better than the actors. So some progress was made, I suppose. Goodwill was restored to a degree. Then the star of the film, Rachel Zegler, proceeded to light all that goodwill on fire. She made it clear that she thinks the story of Snow White is actually very creepy and misogynistic. She said Disney was basically going to throw out the old story, get rid of the prince, make a film that supposedly empowers women, and that means downplaying the whole romance thing, which was the whole point of the story. Hiring the Barbie screenwriter and going full-on girl boss was the plan. Then a short clip of the film surfaced online, and we saw exactly what a girl boss Snow White looks like. The clip showed Snow White directing the dwarves to clean their own cottage for her as she instructs them to whistle while they work. Yes, the dwarves come home from a long day at the mines, and they're met by a bossy, unpleasant woman telling them to clean up. Doesn't even help them in this version, which is a pretty big change from the original. She also doesn't seem remotely grateful that they're giving her a place to stay when she desperately needs it. Instead, she just sings along and watches the dwarves do all the work, almost sadistically, really. And once again, as you'd expect, this footage caused a backlash, and Disney quickly had it scrubbed from the internet. Then a couple of months ago, Disney uploaded this teaser for the film. This was their big moment to win back the fans. Here's just a quick part of it.
So, whistle while you work.
So the whole thing has this kind of uncanny valley vibe to it, and pretty much all the comments are negative. Just going through some of them. These are the top comments, in order, by the way. I'm not cherry picking. This is just the top comments. Here's what they say. Quote, "This is actually hilarious. The first Snow White saved Disney. The second ruined it." Another says, "What's the point of doing a live-action remake of an animated movie if you're just going to animate half the characters anyway?" Then there's this one, quote, "It's okay, Disney. You could just cancel the film. We won't be mad if you admit defeat." There are a few people who point out that the trailer has more than 1 million dislikes on YouTube and fewer than 100,000 likes. This information that YouTube hides, but it's still accessible apparently. Comments go downhill from there. One reads, "Wow, Disney, you truly are incredible. It took you 3 years, multiple rewrites, unnecessary CGI, $209 million just for me to enjoy a comment section of a movie I will never watch. Bless you." Then someone writes, "I'm rooting for the poison apple." So you get the idea. Everything about this film is an unmitigated disaster. Even their teaser trailers are bombing. After all this, if there are any adults left at Disney, you'd think they'd be in damage control mode at this point. Maybe they can't control how bad this film is going to be. Maybe they can't improve the CGI on the dwarves anymore. Way too late for script rewrites. Costs a lot of money, and they're probably well over budget at this point. But at a minimum, you'd think that they could at least say, tell Rachel Zegler to stop talking like a deranged left-wing activist just for a little bit, just until the movie comes out. That might mitigate some of the potential future damage for this film, which is somehow already getting even worse press than Joker 2 and not even out yet. But apparently telling Rachel Zegler to behave normally just isn't an option either. So the other day, in response to the presidential election, Zegler had a very public meltdown on her Instagram stories. She wrote, quote, "F you, Donald Trump." Then she proceeded to insult the 75 million Americans who voted for him. Quote, "I find myself speechless in the midst of this. Another 4 years of hatred, leading us towards a world I do not want to live in." Yeah, you always got to love starting with F you and then ending with, complaining about all the hatred in the world. Of course, if Zegler doesn't want to live in America anymore, she's free to leave. She certainly has the resources to do that. But she seems to suggest that Donald Trump will make the entire world uninhabitable, which, is kind of a new one. Actually, it's not entirely new. It reminds me of 2016 when Cher declared that she would have to leave the planet if Donald Trump won. And she never left, strangely enough, although she kind of looks like she did. And ironically, if she wants to leave the planet now, Elon Musk is probably her best bet, which raises its own complications, I guess. So these celebrities are really running out of options. But Zegler wasn't done there. Her post added that Trump is, quote, "leading us towards a world that will be hard to raise my daughter in, leading us towards a world that will force her to have a baby she doesn't want, leading us towards a world that is fearful." She stated that, quote, "the left continues to fail us in forging a new path forwards. This loss should not have been, and it certainly should not have been by so many votes. May Trump supporters and Trump voters and Trump himself never know peace." Now, what's amusing about this, of course, is that it's pretty clear that Zegler is the one who doesn't know peace. She's obviously an emotionally unstable basket case who has no idea how to process the fact that none of her paranoia is based in reality, and the vast majority of Americans don't agree with her political views. So instead of coming to terms with her own faults and misconceptions, she says that she wants Trump supporters to suffer emotionally just as she does every single day. Misery loves company, as they say. In further examples of projection, Zegler went on to state that Trump voters are part of a, quote, deep, deep sickness in this country. She added, quote, "there's no help, no counsel in any of them," whatever that means exactly. Then she told all of her fans to delete their X accounts, charging that Elon Musk helped get that man elected. This is a bit of an aside, but this is a common trend now on the left. They're suddenly abandoning X now that Trump has won. The Guardian just announced that it's going to stop posting its articles on X. For one example, ex-CNN anchor Don Lemon, along with a random NYU professor named Jay Rosen, did the same thing. I just saw this morning, Joy Reid has also deleted her X account. What a tragedy. This is a platform that until Election Day, these people claimed was a cesspool of fringe ideas and radical beliefs, but they remained on it anyway. Now that the election has proven that X is actually representative of mainstream thought in America, suddenly they can't tolerate it anymore. They have to abandon the platform. Doesn't really make any sense. You can only conclude that the left is simply incapable of realizing that they're the ones who are far outside the mainstream. When they're confronted with that evidence, they can't process it. So they have to scamper away. They're just totally humiliated. In any event, Rachel Zegler is not capable of experiencing humiliation, so she has no problem telling her supporters to abandon X entirely. She also has no problem going on an unhinged rant against more than half the country, including a lot of people that presumably Disney would like to sell tickets to. Many of those Republican voters are in the target audience for the Snow White remake. They're the people who like these kinds of traditional stories. They're the people who are having kids. These are the kinds of people Disney needs to show up if the movie is going to be remotely profitable. And now the star of the film is telling them all to go to hell. Now, one of the many ironies here is that about a year ago, Disney CEO Bob Iger said the company would stop getting involved in these political fights. He said that they wouldn't push any kind of agenda. He said they'd quiet the noise and proceed with decency and respect for their audience. Well, I guess so much for that. Now, according to the star of Disney's upcoming marquee film, 75 million Americans are horrible people who should suffer for all eternity. The other remarkable aspect to this is that Disney, as you may recall, fired Gina Carano for her allegedly controversial social media post just a couple of years ago. And Gina Carano never did anything remotely like what Rachel Zegler has done. Gina mocked the idea of wearing masks and preferred pronouns, which makes sense because wearing masks and preferred pronouns are both really dumb ideas. And she pointed out that totalitarian governments make citizens hate one another, which is true. History proves that's true. And for all this, Disney fired her. And her talent agency dropped her on top of it. Gina Carano did not personally attack tens of millions of people. She didn't berate her own fan base. She didn't say that half of the people who watch Star Wars are bad people. She didn't say that. Instead, she articulated views that the vast majority of Americans agree with. So why is she still involved in litigation with Disney to get her job back while Rachel Zegler is the face of the company's upcoming blockbuster film? Now, we all know the answer to that question. Disney, despite what its CEO says, is an explicitly political operation. But more than that, they're vengeful. Even though it's clearly not helping them financially, they can't hide their disdain for tens of millions of Americans. That's very bad news for Disney shareholders and everyone else hoping that this company might one day return to what it once did, which is to create entertaining family films that normal people want to watch. It's virtually guaranteed the Snow White remake is going to continue crashing and burning over the next few months like a slow-moving train wreck. And especially now, after this was the nail in the coffin, now that you've insulted more than half of the people you would need to come watch this movie. And that is why, once again, Disney, their new Snow White film, and Rachel Zegler herself are all today canceled. If you're a homeowner like me, when's the last time you checked on the title to your home? That's a legal document that shows that you own it. If the answer is never, you need to know that a fast-growing crime, according to FBI, is called house stealing. I was recently shown how easy this scam is to pull off, and let me tell you, it's pretty shocking. This one-page document is called a quitclaim deed. Criminals are forging these documents by filling them out with your information, signing it with a fake signature, and stamping it with a notary seal that you can get online for $20, and then filing them with county officials, and that's it. It's all it takes for your home to be transferred out of your name without your knowledge. But here's the thing. The scammers don't want your house, they're after your equity. They take out loans using your home as collateral, and then they disappear, leaving you with a financial and legal nightmare. But you can protect yourself from this despicable crime right now with triple lock protection from Home Title Lock. Just like how my producer, Sean Hampton, protects his home. First step is to check on your home's title. Make sure you're not already a victim. You can get a free title history report and a 30-day free trial of triple lock protection today by going to HometitleLock.com using promo code Walsh or click on the link in the description. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code Walsh. Don't wait till it's too late. Natural disasters are becoming more frequent and devastating. From Maui fires to Hurricane Helene, we're seeing entire towns wiped out in 24 hours with barely any warning. And what happens? People are left without basic resources, scrambling to survive. Now, I know you're thinking it won't happen here. Well, that's exactly what everyone thinks until they're in the middle of a catastrophe. Being prepared isn't just smart, it's essential. And that's where the wellness company's emergency kit comes in. These aren't your run-of-the-mill first aid kits. We're talking about a personalized mini pharmacy right in your own home. No more relying on overworked doctors or understocked pharmacies when disaster strikes. Bacterial infections, staph, bite wounds, UTIs, strep throat, respiratory illnesses. These kits have you covered. It's like having a doctor in your pocket, minus the liberal indoctrination from med school. Look, you keep a fire extinguisher handy, don't you? Well, consider this your medical fire extinguisher. It's not paranoia, it's preparedness. Here's how it works. Just fill out a form online, a pharmacist reviews it, and boom, your kit arrives in 2 weeks. It even comes with a medical board approved guidebook. It's that simple. And right now, when you go to urgentcarekit.com/Walsh and use promo code Walsh, you'll save $60 plus get free shipping. That's urgentcarekit.com/Walsh to save $60. This is preparedness simplified. Invest in your family's self-managed insurance plan today. urgentcarekit.com/Walsh. USA residents only. Our number 2 cancellation throws a bit of a curveball. The Washington Post reviewed my film, Am I Racist? And their take on my film was actually truly shocking. Watch. Well, we know that the mainstream media is corrupt, dishonest, and both intellectually and morally bankrupt. That is the fundamental reason why, as we've been tracking on the show for the past few weeks, mainstream film critics have refused to review my new film, Am I Racist? But credit where credit is due. A few journalists, even if they aren't film critics, from a few major publications have had the gumption to acknowledge the movie's existence. And yesterday, most unexpectedly, the Washington Post was added to that list. The film critic at the Post, whoever it is, still has not reviewed the film and probably never will. But the journalist Megan McArdle did bravely venture to theaters to watch the movie and wrote about it. Wrote about it mostly positively, it turns out, after the fact. And here's the headline. You might not enjoy Am I Racist? You should watch it anyway. Which I could not agree more. Whether you like it or don't, still watch it. That's my message. Now, even before reading her piece, I'm impressed simply that she's willing to do the thing that people who are paid to watch and write about movies have been too afraid to do. But the readers of the Washington Post are not so impressed. In fact, their reaction demonstrates why most mainstream outlets have been too afraid to venture down this road. And we'll take a look at their reaction in just a moment. But first, let's read a little bit of McArdle's take on the film. She begins, as I drove to the AMC Theater in Danvers, Massachusetts, my phone kept peppering me with the same plaintive question. Am I racist? It was startling the first time it happened, and for a second, I wanted to reassure my phone that no consumer electronic device can't be racist. But the phone wasn't really asking. Rather, it was reminding me that I had tickets for the latest movie by Matt Walsh, a conservative podcaster and provocateur who is probably most famous for his film, What is a Woman? That movie apparently did well enough to justify releasing the new one onto about 1,500 screens this month. It was number 4 at the box office, albeit a distant 4th in a very slow week, which is why I was going to see it. While you might not like this suggestion, you should do the same. FYI, actually, it wasn't a very slow week. Our film came out only a week after Beetlejuice set box office records for the month. And we weren't a distant 4th. We were like 700K behind the 3rd place film, which isn't really distant. And that was Deadpool and Wolverine. But who's counting? I mean, I'm counting obsessively every day, but let's not get hung up on those details. Continuing. I'm not promising you'll enjoy the movie. If you're on the liberal to progressive side, you'll think it's simplistic and unfair, which, yes, obviously. But it's also effective, and people on that end of the spectrum should watch it to understand why it works and why the left keeps providing Walsh such a rich trove of targets. If you don't like the people he's lampooning, it's easy to convince yourself that he's revealing something deep and important, just as I've heard progressives argue that Borat movies were laying bare the hateful underbelly of America. But what Walsh is actually revealing is 2 not very surprising realities of human nature. First, that every group has an awful fringe, and it's easy to make that group look bad if only the fringe's worst moments survive the cutting room floor. Second, that the human instinct for avoiding confrontation is exploitable if you're sufficiently willing to violate the social contract. Both points have already been amply demonstrated by a long history of cults and dictatorships, not to mention middle school. Yet, to give Walsh his due, it's still jaw-dropping when participants in the ersatz diversity workshop sit silently or even participate as he berates a sick-looking elderly man in a wheelchair for being a racist. Walsh eventually stops the workshop when it seems as though they're actually considering flagellating themselves with the whips that he's passed out. So, this is not exactly a rave review. She credits the film for being effective, but also calls it simplistic and unfair. She also attempts to absolve the left of any blame for what we document in the movie. And she does that by writing off, Robin DiAngelo and company as the fringe. Now, as one of the guys who made the film, I, of course, disagree with these assessments. The core message of the film may be, in many ways, simple, but that's not the same as being simplistic. And the Robin DiAngelos of the world are certainly not in any way the fringe of the left. Robin DiAngelo conveys and promotes left-wing racial ideology, not a fringe version of it, but a mainstream version of it. I mean, this is a woman who, as she confesses in the film, is hired by Fortune 500 companies and major government agencies to do workshops for their employees. And calling that fringe, I think, is rather absurd. By analogy, and it's hard to come up with an analogy for the right because nobody on the right has access to those kinds of institutions. But, imagine if Sean Hannity ever found himself in an embarrassing situation and I tried to claim that he's just a fringe right-winger. I mean, say what you want about Sean Hannity, he's definitely not a fringe character on the right. And Robin DiAngelo is considerably less fringe than that on the left. After all, the most mainstream thing a conservative can do is host a show on Fox News. On the left, mainstream means that you're doing work for Coca-Cola. and Google and Netflix and so on, which is what Robin DiAngelo says that she's done in the film. And that's the kind of mainstream that Robin DiAngelo and her cronies are. And it's as mainstream as you can get. Okay, I cannot think of anything more Google is like the definition of mainstream. And so if you're getting hired by Google, then you are mainstream. You're the mainstream of the mainstream. On the left, anyway. So I think McArdle is incorrect in some of her analysis, but still, I give her credit for offering any analysis at all, even a wrong analysis. And it's not entirely wrong. So here's how she wraps everything up. A number of the people attending his workshop walk out as the strangeness escalates. And earlier in the film, he gets kicked out of a workshop that someone else runs, but that happens only after he leaves the room, giving participants time to figure out who he is and reach consensus on expelling him. Most people sit through his provocations because, well, it would be rude to leave or point out how bizarre his suggestions are. That itself is telling, however, because some of his targets are also exploiting those same conciliatory social instincts, which is what makes the movie's jokes land. When progressive activist Syra Rao monologues about the awfulness of white women to a group of white women at one of her race to dinner events, which reportedly cost up to $5,000 to stage, the faces of the guests foreshadow those of Walsh's workshop participants, the frozen anxiety of someone witnessing a social offense and unwilling to return it in kind. That's also what you see on the face of celebrity diversity consultant Robin DiAngelo when a bewigged Walsh gives all his cash to a black producer as reparations and invites DiAngelo to do the same. I dropped my head into my hands as DiAngelo went scurrying for her wallet, though I confess I also laughed. Because you can't help think of how many times DiAngelo has been paid for advice on how white people ought to interact with people of color, and some of that advice is only slightly less bizarre and patronizing than suggesting we haul out our wallets and tip them $20. DiAngelo and Rao and a number of others gained money and fame during the Great Awakening because decent people, genuinely concerned about America's racial divides, were too polite to point out that they sounded like lunatics. Those well-intentioned Americans had their social instincts hacked, the machinery diverted into a continuous loop of unproductive navel-gazing instead of the racial justice they were trying to achieve. That's what left them vulnerable when Matt Walsh showed up to exploit the same bug. Now, that's her main takeaway, and she's right. What we attempted to do in the film, successfully, I think, is tap into the same exploitation and manipulation methods that these DEI race hustlers use and turn it against them. And if McArdle noticed that, then she understood the basic point of the film, even if I could quibble with some of her analysis, but the basic thrust of it, she understood and is articulating, I think, very well. Her readers, though, are doing quite a bit more than quibbling with her analysis. In fact, they are offended that she's offering any kind of analysis at all. So I perused the comment section on the Washington Post website, and I'll give you a brief sampling, enough to kind of get the basic gist. And as I read these, I'm going to ask our editors to put some sad piano music in the background in order to really capture the vibe of these distraught commenters who have been betrayed by this movie review from a journalist. Here's what they have to say. Just reading a few. Yeah, I'm going to give my money to someone who fights everything I support. If he was being sincere in doing the work, that would be one thing. But to pay to see a mockumentary about racism from an alt-right Trumper? To put money in that guy's pocket? To go to see this to, as they say, own the libs as a liberal? Well, that's an easy pass. Another says, my God, the depth of your stupidity and that of Walsh is deeply, truly staggering. Or is it just pure bigotry? Or is it just running a con on suckers for money? We know why moronic movies like this work. It's because they have a huge propaganda apparatus constantly lying to these people. And that includes grifters like you. It's because they were raised by people unconcerned with truth or facts or history or empathy with others. And many were told this was just God's will. We should give a person money who has openly supported theocracy and fascism so we can understand? Should I donate money to Nazis so I can understand? The next one says, trying to justify and normalize racism has been the goal of the right for years. Now they have a WAPO opinion writer going to lengths to explain racism is okay because the fringe left has some crazy people? Nice try. Another says, so he's not sincere, therefore is a racist and thinks this is all something to laugh about. Why would you support and promote this project, Miss McArdle? unless you yourself are happily and openly racist too, y'all are effing weird. Another says, I didn't know anything about Matt Walsh, the person that created the movie recommended here by Megan McArdle. I would have more respect for McArdle in the Post if I had never read this column, if I had never known anything about Matt Walsh. And another says, Walsh's last movie was utterly repugnant. If you paid to watch another movie by him for anything other than science or journalism, you just might have a problem. And one more, this grifter movie has nothing to do with racism. It's about owning the libs and getting famous and rich off the MAGA goobers who will confirm their biases. So pretty much like all the rest of the current Republican cult from the orange leader down. Now I have to say, I really take exception to that last comment. He says the movie isn't about racism, it's actually about getting rich and famous. But why can't it be about racism and getting rich and famous? I mean, two things can be true at once, right? We could kill multiple birds with one stone here. And as for the rest of these comments, the most important thing to keep in mind is that these are people who have not seen the movie. They object to anyone seeing it at all. They didn't even pay attention to McArdle's analysis. It didn't matter what her analysis was. In their minds, she betrayed them simply by watching it. I mean, this is the cult mentality that you find on the left. And although the right has plenty of issues of its own, you don't find anything quite like this on our side. You know, conservatives would not get angry at a right-wing commenter for watching a Michael Moore movie and offering a perspective on it. In fact, you know, if there's a new Michael Moore movie out, which there hasn't been in a long time, and people are talking about it and the left is celebrating it, I think if you're a right-wing commentator, you're actually kind of expected to watch it so that you can give your take on it, because your audience wants to know. They want to know, like, what do you think about this thing? And indeed, pretty much every movie Hollywood churns out, documentaries and narrative features, are made by raging leftists. As a conservative commentator myself, I don't have to worry that my audience will dogpile me if I watch a movie and give my thoughts on it. You find this attitude on the left for two basic reasons. The first is that their worldview is a brittle, fragile thing. It cannot withstand any serious or even not so serious challenge, which means they have to steadfastly avoid anything that might challenge it. C.S. Lewis once wrote that a young man who wishes to remain a sound atheist cannot be too careful of his reading. And the same could be said about a young man or a woman, or an old man or woman who wishes to remain a sound leftist. But the other thing that comes out in these comments, and also in the backlash that YouTube reviewer Jeremy Johns experienced when he dared to notice that my movie exists, is that many on the left have come to believe that they own the art form of film itself. If you're on the right, you've long since grown accustomed to the fact that, as we just established, virtually every movie you've ever seen was made by people who disagree with you and probably hate you. Leftists have had the exact opposite experience, and this has given them a sense of kind of artistic entitlement. They believe that art belongs to them. Conservatives who make art are treated as intruders, as burglars, kind of sneaking through the window in the middle of the night. The only appropriate response is to kind of shoo them away. They don't belong here. Art is not for them. That's the attitude. And it's a delusion that I'm quite happy to break, I have to say. I will say, though, that I did find one comment on the Washington Post website from somebody who says they actually watched the film. And here's what the comment says. Quote, "I went out of my way to see it last week. What a horrible excuse for a movie. Like watching MLK on steroids." Now, I promise you, I did not make that comment up. This is someone insulting me by, I guess, calling me MLK on steroids. I don't know if he means that I'm like MLK but extremely muscular, or if he means that in a more kind of philosophical sense, that I'm like a civil rights pioneer turned up to the nth degree. Maybe he means it in both ways. I'm a muscular, turbocharged civil rights icon. I can only assume that's what he's trying to say, and all I can say to that is guilty as charged. Perhaps if we do a sequel in the next film, I'll pass around a petition to change the Martin Luther King Jr. monument to the Matt Walsh monument. And it's an idea worth considering, at least. So that comment was obviously correct and deeply, deeply rational, I think, but the other ones, not as much. And that is why the Washington Post readers who are having a heart attack because somebody watched my movie are all today canceled. There have been a lot of meltdowns over the movie. Many of the meltdowns have come from corporate media, and the rest have come from the audience of some corporate media outlets who melted down because those outlets didn't melt down. So it's all very confusing. But of course, when it comes to left-wing meltdowns, nothing can possibly hold a candle to the reaction early last month to Donald Trump's glorious and overwhelming victory. So our number one cancellation of 2024 takes us on a tour of just some of them. What I'd like to do is close out the show by sifting through some of the more hysterical reactions from the left. We played a bit of MSNBC at the top of the show, but the meltdowns get even more glorious. And I think it's important to highlight some of these because they're hilarious. And I mean, that's really the whole reason. That's the only reason to do it. And I just feel like it feels like my duty on a day such as today. But before we begin, I do want to make it very clear that I am not a cruel person. I am very empathetic. Now, yes, I'm going to be delighting in the pain and suffering of my political opponents. Yes, I do take great pleasure in their misery, but I also care about them. And that's why I made sure that we continued to play the trailer for my film, Am I Racist?, on MSNBC's airwaves this morning. It was a very difficult time for MSNBC's viewers, and I realized that, and so I figured that I'd cheer them up by showing them my trailer. Watch.
We've officially entered into the fever dream portion.
The Daily Show on Comedy Central in Watch Next Day on Paramount Plus.
Growing up in the 90s, I never thought much about race.
What's happening in this country, it's Nazism. Republicans are Nazis.
I'm going to sort this out. I need to go deeper undercover.
Joining us now is Matt, certified DEI expert.
Here's my certification. So what's up with white people? What are you doing to decenter your whiteness?
Who's making it the center? Why are they doing that?
And what you're doing is you're stretching out of your whiteness. That's more for you and less for you.
Am I Racist? Now streaming only on DailyWire Plus.
I mainly just wanted you to see the trailer with the MSNBC banner around it, which is just fantastic. Now, listen, I don't expect anyone to thank me or praise me for my abundant mercy and compassion, but they should. We are running that ad on MSNBC, even though we know that not a single one of their viewers will actually subscribe to watch the film. Not a single one. I mean, we've been, and I am willing to take a financial loss, or at least I'm willing for the Daily Wire to take a financial loss. I'm not paying a dime. But I am willing for this company to lose money just to get that trailer in front of their faces this morning when they're already devastated and hurting. And I'll lose as much of this company's money as is necessary to annoy as many of MSNBC's viewers as we can. That's my solemn promise to you. And it's an act of charity, really. Anyway, now that I've proven that I'm a compassionate and kind person, let's get on with delighting in the misfortune of others. We'll begin with this brief compilation of women on TikTok crying. Now, Donald Trump, we know, is now 2-0 against female presidential candidates, which is just, oh man. He has prevented a woman from becoming president twice. And that fact is just too much for the women of TikTok. They cannot cope with it, and they're very upset. And don't laugh at any of this. This is not about laughing. It's just. Anyway, here it is.
Somebody please let me know when the blue starts to shift. When does the blue start to shift? Somebody let me know when the blue starts to shift, please. Somebody please let me know. When did it end? All the enjoyment. I'm sad and I'll be in denial for at least. I think we get the point.
It's not funny. Don't laugh about that. These people are hurting. They're hurting. Don't you dare laugh. I do want to especially highlight, so those were good, but I want to especially highlight this particular TikTok meltdown. Here it is.
We may not have rights tomorrow, so I'm going to bed with the last bit of dignity that I have left. We fought a good fight, and if it turns out that, shit flips, great, hell yeah, but right now I'm just not. I can't deal with this right now.
She says she's going to bed with the last of the dignity she has left. And I just want to say this. You didn't have any dignity left anyway. So that's the good news. You can't lose any of your dignity if you don't have it. So cheer up. Look on the bright side. Speaking of having no dignity, there's also this one.
Y'all want to violate my stuff? I don't give a fuck about none of that, because all the people that's violating my freaking life right now are Trump supporters. Y'all the only ones happy about this shit right now. Y'all the only ones. Y'all see I got my blue on. I done cried so much that my blue went up. And I have to wear red because this is my freaking job. If I didn't have to wear this stupid ass color, I wouldn't be wearing it. Trust and believe me. Trust and believe me. I hate red so much in my life. Right now, I don't even know what to do. I've never hated red so much in my life until now. I hate red. Hate the fact that I have to wear this color today. I really do. Because I don't represent Trump at all. Go Trump? Honey, you gonna say, we'll see if you still scream go Trump in the next few months. Let's see. We'll see. All y'all say go Trump, we'll see if y'all still screaming that. We'll see. Because I bet you won't. Because that man about to walk up in that White House. And he about to tear up. He about to tear up.
Well, we can only hope. We can only hope that he tears it up. That's literally what we elected him to do. That is, it's in the exit polling data. That's what, when they stopped the exit, when the pollsters stopped people coming out of the, what was most important to you? And I think the last exit poll I saw was 87% of voters said, most important thing is we get someone who's going to tear shit up. So that's the whole point. But if that reaction wasn't unhinged enough, then there's also this one.
Yo, I'm scared to go to sleep. I might wake up late.
24/7 on Disney Plus.
Y'all, like, why are y'all Trump supporters? Like, why?
This is a fraud.
Why are y'all Trump supporters? Like, why is this a thing right now? Why is this okay? I can't do this no more. I should have kept my vote to myself because I knew it didn't matter. I knew it didn't.
So she's worried she's going to wake up a slave tomorrow. Makes sense. As everyone knows, Trump ran on reinstating slavery. It was one of his core campaign promises. At least if you have the mental computing software for leftists, that's apparently what you hear when Trump says that he's going to lower taxes and create more manufacturing jobs in America. Meanwhile, the actress Christina Applegate is having a tough time. Her entire Twitter page right now is full of unhinged ramblings and worth reading. But there's also this one I like. She says, "Why? Give me your reasons why. My child is sobbing because her rights as a woman may be taken away. Why? And if you disagree, please unfollow me." Now, my favorite thing about this tweet is that she begins by asking Trump voters to explain why they voted for him, but she ends by telling them to shut up and go away. Explain why you did this. Shut up, leave. Now, which is it? You can't really do both. And in between, she tells us that her child is traumatized because her rights are going to be taken away, and her child may well be traumatized. I mean, and I'm sorry if she is, but Christina Applegate is the one who traumatized her. I'd be traumatized too as a child if my mom was hysterically screaming that the world's coming to an end and all of our rights will disappear. Now, so far, we've only reveled in the manic rage and despair of female Kamala supporters, but plenty of men are melting down, too. We'll get to those in a minute. First, here's one more from a woman.
So the election between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris has not been called yet. We do not know who the winner is, but it is pointing in one direction. And it's not final, but I just wanted to say that America failed women tonight, primarily. Trump has insulted women, berated them, has been found liable in court for assaulting a woman, and he took women's reproductive rights away. And instead of standing up to that, people voted for it. And we failed our daughters, our mothers, our sisters, our wives tonight. America failed them. We failed them. It is unfortunately the reality of the situation. So I'm sorry to everybody out there who will be impacted by what may come.
America failed women, he says. Failed them. Of course, a whole lot of women also voted for Trump, but they failed themselves. You know what? You failed yourselves, women. Americans failed women by showing that they also recognize the humanity of babies. And in this person's world, it's one or the other. You know, America had to choose babies or women. And Harry is deeply disappointed that we chose babies. Even though to people who are not morally insane, that choice doesn't exist because we can care about both women and babies at the same time. And we did. That's why we voted for Trump. Mike Wise is a sports commentator, apparently, and he agrees with Harry. He tweeted, quote, "It's not just that Trump won. It's that Joe Rogan, Dana White, and Brett Favre won. Jailed insurrectionists won. The Alitos and the Thomases won. Vladimir Putin won. Racism won. Misogyny won. Sexism won. Global warming won. Xenophobia won. Most of all, fear won. That's what hurts." Now, there are about a million other tweets that we could read, all with this same tone and message. Who are the real villains in this story? Who is to blame for the loss? The American people. The people are the villains. They chose racism and misogyny and global warming. How quickly the left went from being valiant defenders of the democratic system to scapegoating it when things don't go their way, which is the most predictable twist ending in the history of twist endings. Now, I think we've probably seen enough, but I do have to play just one more. Just one more. And you know, I know that many of you, you look back to 2016 and you remember fondly that iconic moment of the Hillary voter falling to her knees and screaming into the sky. And you may be worried that we haven't seen anything that quite matches that yet. Well, don't worry, because I think this comes close.
I'm sorry. No! Why? Do you really hate me that bad?
Just wonderful. Listen. Yes, it lacks the spontaneity and authenticity of the 2016 version. This woman had to set up her camera and scream hysterically, stop recording. So she had to decide, okay, I'm going to scream hysterically now, take out her phone, set it up, scream, stop recording, edit it down, post it. She had to do all that. She probably watched that video back 10 or 15 times before she posted it. She probably did multiple takes. If you were to check her camera roll right now, I guarantee there are like 30 of those videos where she's going for just the right, she had to repeat that 30 times. And you might say that makes the mental breakdown less enjoyable for the rest of us. But I tend to disagree. I, for one, appreciate the effort that she's putting into it. It's the thought that counts. Now, let me just say one more thing before we close out. And we've had our fun with these videos. We've sipped from the chalice of leftist suffering. We've satiated our thirst with the sweet nectar of liberal tears. But I do want to get serious for just one moment and offer a word of encouragement to these people. It may seem funny to us, but they are truly worried that Donald Trump will be an evil dictator. And I think it'd be irresponsible and frankly pretty cruel of me if I didn't take a second to reassure them on that point. So, in all seriousness, all jokes aside, no, Donald Trump is not going to be an evil dictator. He's going to be a good dictator. So don't worry. Yes, Trump is going to be dictator for life. When he dies, his throne will be passed down to Baron Trump, and the Trump dynasty shall reign for 1,000 years. But it's all for your own good. Is Trump going to take away all of your rights? Absolutely not. Not all of them. You'll still have the right to agree with Trump and praise him always. Is Trump going to take away voting rights from women? Again, no. Women will have the right to vote for whoever their husbands tell them to vote for, which will always be Trump. Will Trump intentionally spray more CO2 into the air to cause more global warming, melt the ice caps intentionally, raise global temperatures to tropical levels? Yes, obviously. It's only the coastal states that voted against him in this election, and so now they must be drowned to pay for their sins. The rest of us get to enjoy warm summer weather all year round, so it's basically a win-win. So in that way, all of your fears are valid, and this was all laid out in Project 2025, like you said. It was all there. It's like on page 1. But it won't be as bad as you think. Trust me, in a few months, you won't be complaining anymore because you won't be allowed to. And I hope that makes you feel better. So there it is. Those are the top 4 cancellations of 2024. The good news is that 2025 is a whole new year, an opportunity to cancel many more people and places and things. I'll come out swinging after the new year, ready to cancel with abandon, as I always do. That is my solemn pledge to you. Until then, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. See you in 2025. The executive producer of the Matt Walsh Show is Sean Hampton. Our associate producer is McKenna Michaelis. The show is directed by Mark Jones and Trey Miller. Our production manager is Austin Michaelis. The show is edited by Jeff Tomlin. Our lead audio engineer is Mike Coromina. Our audio engineer is Ryan Reese. Our hair and makeup artists are Cherokee Hart and Andrea Bauer. Our wardrobe stylists are Kristen Galarraga and Cameron Lasko. Our director of post-production is Matthew Kemp. Director of production operations is Pavel Vodosky. Our chief broadcast engineer is Jeff Govin. And our assistant broadcast engineer is Allegra Rohr. Our lighting director is Keith Duggan. Our playback operators are CJ Hickish and Finn Pope. Our show assistant is Holly Merritt. And our production assistant is Mike Moran. Executive in charge of production is David Wormus. Executive producer is Jeremy Boring. The Matt Walsh Show is a Daily Wire production. Copyright Daily Wire 2024.
Hi, this is Andrew Klavan. If you like American flags and automatic weapons and shaking your fist at homosexuals while fighter jets fly over in formation, come to the Andrew Klavan Show. We don't have any of that. But we will be making fun of idiots and praising God and laughing our way through the fall of the Republic. It's like an insane asylum for happy people. That's the Andrew Klavan Show right here on Daily Wire Plus.